sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Like just because
And
you didn't get to where you wanted to go just means you probably learned something about yourself along the way too. So if you start thinking of things or looking at things as they are happening for you, not happening to you, that's a big perspective shift as well, I think.
Welcome everyone to our Thursday live chat. It's the three of us again. We had so much fun last time that we decided to do it again.
Yeah.
So again, Matt, Jilisa, Tom, you probably all know us by now. Today, we're going to be talking about why it's important to set goals. Now, this can be confusing, or some people don't like setting goals. I've talked to a lot of people who don't actually like setting goals, and there's a valid reason for that, right? Because it can be a confusing thing, and why would we do this? So we're going to start to break that down for you. I'm going to start with just a few points that I have in my head. It's not solely about achieving the goals. It's about who you're becoming in the process of achieving those goals. So let's say, as an example, next summer, I had an idea that I want to go hike this 2-day long trek in the mountains. Now, actually achieving that goal would be pretty exciting, and I feel good about that. But in the process to being able to do that, I'm going to have to train more. I'm going to have to eat better. I'm going to have to work on my mindset. And so when I reach that time to or do this hike in next summer, I'm actually going to be a stronger person. I'm going to be more resilient and all these other things. So it's about who you're becoming in the process. And Tom, you had something along the same lines, right?
Yeah. It's more about, like, I always talk about setting, they're called like process focused goals. So instead of, like, you can have big goals that we set, which is great, like the end goal, like Matt's talking about. But I think those big goals are just really used to help focus our attention or give us a more, finite direction in which we're going. So those are great. And if we get there, that's awesome. But I think it's super important to set, like I said, process focused goals. So what that could look like is, say my big goal is to lift 400-pound deadlift or something like that. You need to obviously know where we're at to start so we can, set some good goals from there. But maybe it is that I need to work on my deadlifting or hinging strength twice a week. And so I set that goal for myself. That's going to help me get there, right? So that's what I talk about when I talk about, process focused goals. It's like you turn your big goal into like smaller steps, obviously, that are actually applicable to help you get there. I know Jilisa talked about that a little bit as well before we hopped on here, about having somebody be able to break it down for you.
yeah, I think like so often we get overwhelmed by the goals that we think we should set or that seem like, I don't know, good ideas or good numbers just because we're not sure exactly what's realistic. And I think that too is often why people don't like setting goals, because they're afraid of failing or afraid of not reaching that goal. So I really think like having someone to talk through just setting goals and working through that with you is so important, because I think I see it so often, like with nutrition clients, of that they'll come in and part of my initial conversation with someone is always like, so what are your goals? Like, what are you here for? And so often it'll start with like, well, like I want to lose 50 pounds or like 100 pounds or even like 10, which in theory might be okay, but oftentimes like the goals that people think they need to achieve is not even realistic for their bodies or for their health. So maybe someone who's like, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds, in reality they would be at their healthiest maybe losing 25 but feeling really strong. So like it's important, I think, to like use data for one, so like to actually look at how a person's body is composed, or like a person's body composition gives them a more realistic idea of what to aim for. But also same with like lifts or gym kind of goals, is like I mean I'm more of a pusher when it comes to goals, and I'll likely say like, no, you need to add 20 more pounds to your goal. But I think it's good too to have someone help you work on those goals, because it can be easy to be like, oh, I want to run 20 kilometers or, something like that. And then it's like, okay, that's awesome, but how are you going to get there? And like breaking it down a little bit more too. So I think there's actually so much that goes into setting goals, because I think we think of it too as also being like just physical, but so much of reaching your goal is like psychological as well as like realistic. Like, do you have the time to commit to doing that? Or like, how about your family? Are they going to love it if you're gone training 3 hours a day, or whatever that might look like? So I think there's like so much that we don't often think about when it comes down to actually like making a realistic goal. That was a really long answer to your question.
It's great. It was great. And I think what you touched on there is understanding why, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, if we go through the supermarket, I've never called a supermarket before. Why just do that? The grocery
I
store.
feel like that's like an American thing.
Yeah. I know Scott commented on this video. There you go, Scott.
Yeah. It's an American Thanksgiving, so maybe that's just like your
Yeah.
shout out to our
Yeah.
American friends.
So you're going through the supermarket checkout and you see all these magazines. It's saying, lose this much weight, gain this much muscle, be this happy, have this much money. So then we're starting to kind of take on all these goals that aren't actually important to us, right?
Mhm.
We achieve them and then we're left feeling dissatisfied. So what we actually do, every person coming into our gym, when we go through the free meeting with them, we say, what are your 5 reasons why?
Mhm.
What are your reasons why you want to get healthier and fitter? Because at the end of the day, the goals are just a stepping stone to get someone healthier and fitter and living their truest potential
Mhm.
as they've been designed to be. So why is this important to you? And a lot of the times that's hard for someone, right? Like we're not used to digging that deep. So we might say, why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Well, I want to feel better in my body.
Yeah.
And I guess we could almost try this, Tom. Me and you could try this right now. Let's try it out. Let's do the 5 whys.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Tom, why do you want a 400-pound deadlift?
Because I want to feel strong, man.
Why is it important to you to feel strong?
Because I know I feel more confident when I am able to, I know what my potential is, and I feel like I would be more confident if I could lift that weight.
And why is it important that you feel confident? What does that give to you?
Oh, now we're getting deep. Yeah. Because I know I put limits on myself. And if I, just get rid of those limits, then I feel like I'll be able to reach what my true potential is.
Love it. I mean, I could have gone much deeper, but I'll save
Mhm.
Tom because
Okay.
but you see it, right? If for those of you listening and you listen to this after, once we can attach you to that deep reason why you want this, when you struggle, because we all struggle with our health and fitness. There's days where we don't want to go. And if we wait for motivation to start, it's never going to happen. But when we attach ourselves to the real reason why we want to do this, whether it's to be with our family for a longer period of time, whether it's to be active and functional in family activities, or to be a nicer person, a more clear-minded person, that's where you attach yourself to keep you pulling forward.
That's something that I do like with my clients of like, I always talk about nutrition because I guess that's what what I talk about a lot. I like, it never fails. I try and remember to say this every time I have a nutrition client, to like, not as a warning, but just as a preparedness thing of like, just so you know, at some point during this journey, it's going to get really hard. And that's why we need to remember why this is important to you. So I usually say, like, write this down somewhere and put it somewhere where you're going to see it often. So on that day when you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to eat a vegetable today, or like, this isn't fun anymore. Don't worry, nutrition's always fun, but you might feel that way for some reason. You see that and you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is why it's important, whether that's like, so I don't get diabetes, or so I live longer so I can see my grandkids, or so I can climb a mountain, whatever. Then it's like, okay, yeah, that is actually really important to me. So it's worth doing the not super fun things today so that I can one day reach that goal. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. No. Tom, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think one of the most people always talk about like SMART goals,
Mhm.
right? That's one of the biggest acronyms, and I'm not saying it's not a bad acronym at all. But the last letter in it is T, and it's about timely, right? So that maybe is what ties into what Jilisa was talking about, having somebody help you set goals that are realistic in a certain timeline. And that's what the R actually is realistic. We got to make sure they're realistic too. But when I talked earlier about like your big goal, and that those are really hard to set a timeline for. I think your really big goal, because you're not sure how long the process is going to take. I still think it's important to set them. We always talk about from a business perspective setting stretch goals. So something that is going to stretch you and push you a little bit. Um, but we don't know when we're exactly going to hit them, and you might not hit it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't set them.
Mhm.
Like, this is just me going more for like the business entrepreneurial mindset right now, but let's like Elon Musk set how many goals, I'm sure, on his way to becoming like a super successful company. Do you think he ever like hit it at the exact date that he wanted to? He
Well,
lost.
he probably did because he's like,
What's that?
I said maybe he did because he's like a wonder kid, but like normal people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you set goals for yeah, whatever it is. Just because you don't hit them, it doesn't mean you give up.
Yeah.
Right. I think
It's important to,
um
that doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah.
yeah. What's the saying? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think too, it's important to like just state the fact that like we often talk about big goals like a 400-pound deadlift or maybe significant amount of weight loss or climbing a mountain. But I think it's important to know that like if your goal is just like show up to the gym 3 times a week consistently, that maybe doesn't feel like a big goal, but like in the big picture, that's huge because that changes the rest of your life. And that's the thing that's going to like add so much change to everything else. So that might not seem like, oh, like this big lofty goal like everybody else, but that doesn't make it any less valuable or any less important. And I would argue that those kind of goals like are really the ones that actually move the needle and are like so valuable. So I think like being not afraid or like almost like ashamed to just say like my only goal is just to show up. Okay, well that's probably the best goal you probably could have. So that's awesome too. And I think that that's important for people to know.
Yeah. And if I could
Mm.
kind of bring all the points together, you have to know why you want to set goals. You have to know why this is important to you, right? So you have this bigger reason why, something you can attach yourself to. And then you set these different goals. I mean, it doesn't have to just be fitness, right? It could be professional life. It could be in your relationships. It could be all these different things. So when we talk about the flywheel, fitness doesn't just come to the physical. It's mental, spiritual connection, like community. It's and then also physical. Then once you start setting these goals, like Tom was saying, you set these little markers. I think of them like little milestones that you know you're going in the right direction, right? If we know that it's not just about achieving the goal, because Tom deadlifting 400 pounds doesn't make him a better person. Like it's, what I mean by that is he's not going to be more liked by everyone. We're
I
not
would
doing it.
like Tom way more if he could have lived.
Okay, maybe. Okay, sorry, Tom. I didn't want to say that on here, but
Yeah.
if you fall short, that's like Jilisa was saying. We tend not to set ideals for ourselves because we're not very we don't have grace for ourselves, right? When we stumble, we don't meet it. We're not able to say, hey, it's not a big deal. Tomorrow's a new day, and let's try
Yeah.
again. And these little milestones, what they act as is almost like markers along that hike I said at the start. And you celebrate those, really celebrate those, because that's how you build momentum. Because when you build momentum, friction is really not going to slow you down. So that's kind of what we're hoping to talk about is goal setting is important, but it's not the end all be all. It's about who you're becoming in the process of setting those goals. So like Jilisa just mentioned, if you set a goal of, I keep using Tom's deadlift. If you set a goal of deadlifting 400 pounds, you're going to have to come to the gym consistently. And you're going to set that as micro goals, macro goal, micro goals. And that's what we do with our coaching clients, right? We give them daily habits to hit. And if you're 80% in these habits, you're going to see success for sure. Anything else to add, team? Tom, you usually have some sort of great quote in your head. I think you have like hundreds in there. Do you have a good quote for this? No pressure.
Not to put you on the spot, but
Man,
Pressure.
for setting goals. I was just gonna say, I think I said it like, yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Like just because you didn't get to where you wanted to go just means you probably learned something about yourself along the way too. So if you start thinking of things as like or looking at things as they are happening for you, not happening to you, that's a big perspective shift as well, I think.
Growth mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Where's the opportunity to grow from this and learn? Jilisa?
Do I have any quotes?
Well, I mean, any closing thoughts, really?
No. Well, yeah, my closing thoughts is like, I always think about like when I get the opportunity to help people set goals, it's exciting. But then like when they reach them, it's just like when I get to like cheerlead for people, it just like makes me emotional. I'm not gonna cry this time because I already did that one time and one is my limit, but it's just like the greatest joy ever when it's like you get to go on that journey with somebody and then they reach their goal. And not that that's like what makes them great, but it just like,
Just,
that's all.
you get so excited. I can see it. And that,
Right,
if I could
think
close out with that, it's that mindset. It like the goals you think aren't possible, usually are possible, right? We often set me and Jilisa were talking about this last night. We set our own ceilings,
Mhm.
right? There's goals you can achieve. You just need the right plan, the right person with you, and the right reasons why. If it's not deeply attached and it's kind of for these, I mean, maybe selfish reasons, then it's harder to stay true to them and you're not going to fulfill them. But if they're meaningful and there's a reason behind them, you'll smash them. And we'd love to help you with that. If you want a free resource on setting goals, just comment goals below. I mean, you can use a S or a Z on them. Doesn't matter to us. We'll still send you it for free. Goals.
Hashtag goals.
Hashtag goals. Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jilisa.
Thank you, Matt.
And Jilisa, you don't have to hop off right away, just like last time.
Yeah, no, I just straight up left. I didn't know how this works.
See you, everyone.